250 years. That's how long it's been since America decided it would rather be a self-governing experiment than somebody else's colony. And somehow we're still here, still arguing, still improvising, and still setting off fireworks like that counts as a national strategy. On paper, this should be the easiest holiday in the world to celebrate. Flags, cookouts, family, freedom, music loud enough to annoy the neighbors, and enough red, white, and blue to make a colorblind person suspicious. But this 4th of July feels different. Because anniversaries like this don't just measure time, they measure temperature. And as America turns 250, the mood is not simple, not clean, and definitely not uniformly cheerful. A major survey from Pew found that most Americans have spent the past year dissatisfied with the way things are going in the country, and many believe that the country's best days are behind it. That's not exactly the usual "we're the greatest nation on earth" soundtrack. That's something more complicated, something more honest. And maybe that's exactly why this holiday matters more this year than it has in a very long time. I want to be careful here, because there's a temptation on holidays like this to pick a lane and stay there. Either you go full on fireworks and sentimentality, or you turn the whole thing into a grim autopsy of the Republic. But America, especially in 2026, is not that tidy. It's not a Hallmark card. It's not a funeral either. It's a contradiction with a flag on it. The official language around this 250th anniversary leans heavily into reflection and recommitment. America 250 says that this is a milestone and an opportunity to pause, reflect on the nation's past, honor the contributions of all Americans, and look ahead toward the future we want to create. The White House has also framed 2026 as the year of celebration and rededication, calling on Americans to reflect upon and celebrate the wisdom and deeds of the founding generation. So the message is clear from the top. This isn't supposed to be just a party. It's supposed to be a reckoning with ourselves. And frankly, that's a fair ask. Because if you're celebrating 250 years of independence, you can't pretend the country hasn't spent those 250 years moving in a straight line from noble ideals to happy ending. History doesn't work that way. Americans today are carrying a very specific mix of emotions: pride in the idea of country, frustration with the reality of the country, and enough exhaustion to make even optimism feel like a part-time job. Pew's numbers capture that tension pretty clearly. Dissatisfaction is high, but hope has not disappeared. That matters. It means people are not done with the country, they're just disappointed in it. And if you're doing a 4th of July special worth hearing, that's where you start. You start with the truth that patriotism in 2026 doesn't have to sound like a marching band. Sometimes it sounds like a sigh. Sometimes it sounds like a joke that lands a little too close to home. Sometimes it sounds like, "I love this country. I'm just not sure what we've been doing with it lately." And honestly, that's a much more interesting question than any other recycled speech about freedom that never has to explain what freedom costs, who gets it easily, and who still is waiting for their turn. So I'm not interested in making this sound like a civic brochure. I'm interested in making it sound like a national conversation. Because the 4th of July is supposed to be about independence, but the real test is whether we can still tell the difference between independence and denial. So let's talk about the mood first, because the mood is the story. We're not entering this holiday into a victory lap mood. We're entering it into a complicated mood. According to Pew's June analysis, most Americans say they're dissatisfied with how things are going in the United States, and the majority believe the country's best days are behind it. At the same time, the same research shows Americans are not uniformly hopeless. Many still feel optimistic or hopeful about the future in personal terms. That split is important. It tells you people haven't given up on life. They've just lost faith in the machinery. And that is very different from apathy. Apathy is when nobody cares. This is when people care so much they're tired of caring and being disappointed at the same time. Like Cowboys fans. But that's why this 250th feels bigger than a birthday. It feels like a referendum on whether the country can still believe in its own story. The state's official and institutional messaging is trying to answer yes. The White House says 2026 is a year of celebration and rededication. America 250 says the point is to commemorate the signing of the Declaration of Independence and reflect on the past while looking ahead. The State Department also describes July 4th, 2026 as America's 250 years of independence, tying the moment directly to the original founding text. All of that is true, but truth and feelings are not the same thing. Because on the ground, in living rooms and backyards and group chats and family tables, a lot of people are not asking, how do we celebrate? They're asking, what exactly are we celebrating right now? That's the real tension. And it's not a new American tension. It's the oldest one we have. The Declaration of Independence was never a promise that America would be perfect. It was a declaration that the government should be accountable to the people, that liberty matters, and that power has to justify itself. In other words, the country was founded on the idea that it should be argued with. So if people are arguing with it now, that's not a breakdown in the American script. That is the script. What's different in 2026 is the level of fatigue. We have spent years now watching institutions lose trust, watching public discourse turn into a permanent shouting match, watching Americans sort themselves into camps that seem to understand each other less and less every month. People do not just disagree anymore. They assume bad faith before the first sentence is even finished. And that's a problem because a country can survive on disagreement, but it struggles much more with complete social contempt. America is a remarkable place. We can literally turn a national milestone into a weekend logistics nightmare, a cultural debate, a food competition, a traffic jam, and a live stream before the sun goes down. We are, in a deeply American way, capable of turning liberty into a tailgate. That's not an insult, that's a diagnosis. There's something absurd and beautiful about a country that says, let's celebrate our founding by buying enough disposable plates to cover a zip code. And maybe that's a part of the charm. We don't always know how to be solemn without getting theatrical. And we don't always know how to be festive without becoming a little ridiculous. But underneath the jokes, the cookouts, the music, and the fireworks is a more serious question. What does it mean to inherit a country at 250 years old? If you're honest, it means inheriting the good, the unfinished, and the broken at the same time. It means inheriting a constitutional system that has lasted longer than most empires, alongside a political culture that seems determined to test every seam in it. It means inheriting enormous freedom alongside enormous inequality. It means inheriting the language of liberty while continuing to argue over who gets to fully experience it. And it means that every 4th of July is both a celebration and a reminder that the work is never actually ended. That's why I think the best tone for this special is not triumphant, it's attentive. Not look at how perfect we are, but look at how far we've come and how much further we still have to go. That also gives you room to speak to what people are feeling without pretending you know exactly what they feel. Some listeners are proud right now. Some are angry. Some are numb. Some are hopeful in private and cynical in public. Some are probably all four before lunch. And if this holiday is going to resonate, the episode has to make room for that entire emotional range. So, yes, make the jokes, but let the jokes reveal something real. You can joke about the flag being everywhere except in the systems that actually need functioning. You can joke about how every American holiday eventually becomes a food ranking and travel headache. You can joke about how the nation spends all year acting divided and then expects emotional unity because someone lit a sparkler. But the humor should never erase the point. The humor should sharpen it. Because the point is this: the 4th of July is not just a celebration of what America was. It's a public test of whether Americans still care enough to argue about what America should be. And honestly, I think they do. That's what makes the Pew findings so revealing. The country may be sour, but sour is not the same as finished. Sour means people are disappointed, alert, and still paying attention. Sour means the relationship is strained, not severed. Sour means there is still something worth defending, even if the defense comes with a long list of complaints. That's the emotional engine of this episode. We're not pretending everything is fine. We are saying the fact that it isn't as fine is exactly why this holiday still matters. And that's also why the 250th anniversary is such a useful mirror. It forces us to stop talking about America like it's an abstract brand and start talking about it like it's a lived experience. For some people, that experience is opportunity. For others, it's exclusion. For many, it's both. For almost everyone, it's messier than the slogan suggests. The anniversary doesn't solve that. It highlights it, which means the honest thing we can do is celebrate without lying. Celebrate the endurance. Celebrate the improbable survival. Celebrate the fact that the nation born in rebellion is still arguing in public about how to live up to its own promises. Celebrate the fact that we don't have to get spit on by Jonathan Groff singing "You'll Be Back." But don't fake a mood that doesn't exist. Don't pretend the cynicism isn't there. Don't pretend the frustration isn't real. Don't pretend people aren't looking at one another across political, generational, and cultural lines and wondering how we got so disconnected. Because if we can say that out loud, then maybe the holiday becomes something more than a routine. Maybe it becomes a checkpoint. Maybe it becomes a moment to ask not just what we've inherited, but what we're willing to repair. Maybe it comes down to an act of national honesty wrapped inside a celebration. So, on this 4th of July, I don't think the goal is to manufacture joy. I think the goal is to recognize durability. There's a difference. Joy can be forced, durability has to be earned. And after 250 years, America is still here, still arguing, still building, still disappointing people, still inspiring people, still trying to reconcile its ideals with its behavior. That may not be the cleanest story in the world, but it is a real one. And real is better than sentimental if you actually want to understand the country you live in. That doesn't mean we abandon the fun, quite the opposite. It means we let the fun carry some of the truth. We let the jokes do some of the heavy lifting. We let the sarcasm expose the absurdities that everybody already knows are there. We celebrate the holiday with enough honesty to make the celebration mean something. Because a country doesn't get to 250 years without contradiction. And it doesn't stay 250 years old unless enough people across enough generations keep deciding it's still worth fighting over, fixing, defending, and yes, sometimes laughing at. That's the part I want people to feel going into this 4th of July. Not blind optimism, not bitter defeatism, something more mature than both. A kind of hard-earned affection. A willingness to say, this is ours, flaws and all, and we'd better be serious about what we do with it next. That's the celebration I think people are ready for. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most American thing left to do. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Kyle Fields. Enjoy your 4th of July. We'll see you next time. Take care.